First, a disclosure. My dad, Andy Rooney, was a longtime commentator on 60 Minutes. This next story involves his one-time boss and a few people that I know at CBS. That said, here's the story. A freelance investigative reporter says the Washington Post inexplicably killed her story about women accusing one-time 60 Minutes boss Jeff Fager of sexual misconduct. In the fall of 2017, investigative reporters Erin Carmen and Amy Britton broke a front-page story in the Washington Post. 8 women were accusing 60 Minutes reporter and CBS host Charlie Rose of sexual harassment.
We're really confident in our reporting. We've done everything we can to verify the accounts that we decided to publish.
But it turns out there was more the Washington Post left out. Accusations that 60 Minutes chief Jeff Fager had also been accused of sexual misconduct.
This is the board of stories that we're working on now.
Erin Carmen now writes in New York Magazine that the Post backed off the story after Jeff Fager made a call to Post editor Marty Baron.
I'm determined to make sure that we publish what we should publish.
In her article, Cameron writes, it's easier for even the most well-meaning editor to empathize with a newsroom leader, a fellow boss. And Cameron was especially miffed that The New Yorker beat her to the story.
6 female former CBS employees told The New Yorker Fager would touch employees in ways that made them uncomfortable.
And speaking of uncomfortable, Carmen called out Fager while accepting an award for her reporting on Charlie Rose.
The stories that we've been doing are actually about a system. It has powerful friends that will ask, is this really worth ruining the career of a good man? Indeed, the system is sitting in this room.
2 months later, Fager was fired. And according to that article that she wrote in New York Magazine, Fager was livid. He was there at that awards ceremony when back knew that she was directing it right at him. As for the Washington Post, Marty Baron has said, and not to me, but while they were doing the reporting, that their story did not meet the standards of the Washington Post, and that's the reason they did not print the details about Jeff Fager. Although in her timeline, Jeff Fager, sorry, in her timeline, the goalposts changed. Originally, they had all anonymous sources. Then they wanted somebody to be on the record. So, by her accounting, things did change. But I can't fault Marty Baron for believing that something didn't meet his standards.
When you take a step back from just that conversation, one of the things that often comes up is the relationships that news organizations have with each other, the partnerships. And there's a lot that's good because it allows you to cover a lot more things with combined resources.
And they had a partnership, we should say.
They had a partnership. And so there's a lot of positive that can come from that. The question, though, then becomes, what happens when one of you mess up? How will you cover it? And that's a difficult conversation to have after the fact. And so I think if in fact that is what led to their hesitancy to go with this story because they wanted to believe a partner about what they've said did not happen, I think you need to say, when you're signing these agreements to have a partnership, say, look, we're doing this, but if in fact we find something, any wrongdoing, we will cover this as if we aren't partners, as an outside agency. And I don't know that that is often said because no one's really expecting this to happen.
Well, they brought that up. They said they tried to do that, so I'm going to believe that they did.
Look, I do think if a story doesn't meet the standards, if they had the evidence on Charlie Rose and the evidence on Fager didn't rise to the same level, I think it's a legitimate editorial decision to say we're going to go with the stronger reporting and we're going to shelve this other one until there's more. But if they killed it because somebody picked up the phone and said, I don't like what you're saying about me, that's unethical. So it depends.
I didn't feel after reading her entire account in The Cut that I had enough information to decide one way or the other why Marty Baron acted the way he did. Even by her own account, she's really not accusing Baron of out-and-out corruption. It's more like, well, it's a good old boy network and this and that and everything else. I think that Baron's reputation speaks for itself, and if he says that it didn't meet the Post standards at that time, I would be inclined to agree with him, even though I sympathize with all the work she did and feeling that it was ready to go.
And then, of course, Ronan Farrow came out within weeks and had basically the same story.
Exactly. You don't have a right to be first.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think that this is a tough one for the reasons that Dan stated about the partnership. and that whole small circle of very powerful people. Also because on the Washington Post side, they are under fire every day from all fronts. So they really want to be right. If they're stepping out there, they don't want you coming for them if they could have had 2 more months to nail down something. So if he says, I didn't feel like that was correct, you're inclined to believe that unless, to your point, she was able to demonstrate in her piece that he was this and this and this, similar to the way that Ronan Farrow did when the New York, when NBC bypassed his story and he said, wait a minute, here's what I had and here's what the New Yorker went with, and nothing changed. That's a different scenario. It doesn't appear to be that, so we can only at this point go with, how do we say we're not on the side of more caution before something goes out? You want to be that. But I have to say, you recall that in the middle of this, Jericka Duncan of CBS reported on the fact that Jeff Fager threatened her. So,
yes, he sent her a threatening email, which is really the reason he got fired, because I read a lot of stuff about this, and it always said that he was associated because of these accusations of sexual misconduct. No, he got fired because he sent a threatening text to a reporter saying, basically, if you report these unfounded accusations against me without proof or naming names, you'll be in big trouble.
And so back to what Jennifer said. Did someone make a phone call and say? We don't know.
Well, somebody did make a phone call.
And what was the final? Did her story, when it finally came out?
Well, there was 2 stories. No, it never mentioned the Fager stuff.
Right.
No, I mean, did someone make a phone call?
But the other thing too is, remember, the Charlie Rose story hadn't been published yet. You're sitting on this explosive Charlie Rose story
with a lot of detail.
Why do you want to muck that up?
No, that's not true. The first Charlie Rose story came out in the fall of 2017. The second one, she was going to fold it in with the Fager stuff, and he made her take the Fager stuff in.
Right,
but it still weakens
Charlie
Rose story.
That was already out. But that was out.